Now, can we be a little bit fair to Mike Nolan before we go and find the 10 candidates to replace him? I'm Mike Fisher. As you can see, we are at Cowboys headquarters at the Star, where they let me hang out. Super Bowl trophies, Troy Aikman junk, and our thoughts on the Mike Nolan hot seat. He still occupies it. I really do. While I don't necessarily respect the job that this defense has done this year, as you know, starting with the ridiculous concept of installing a new defense over the internet instead of in a real summer, I do respect the fact that Mike Nolan is nose to the grindstone here. He's not whining to the media. He's not making excuses. He's not whispering behind anybody's back. He's just saying, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it regarding his job security. Working on the presumption that the Joneses do indeed go to Mike McCarthy and say something's got to change, which I think Stephen Jones has said privately, something's got to change. And I don't mean let's play more 4-3, something substantial. Mike McCarthy will be asked to part ways with his buddy Mike Nolan. It will not mean that Mike Nolan's a bad coach. It'll just mean that the job didn't get done and that the results are bad. So let's put together a list, 10 plus a bonus. And this is my list. This is not the Cowboys list. I do it with the help of two buddies of mine, Jeff Kavanaugh, who you know on 105.3 The Fan, and then Landon McCool, who does our Locked On Cowboys podcast on cowboyssi.com. So we've assembled some big brains here, and a little bit of what I hope I know. And I think I've even might have them in order, my order. But you can call me on all of this. By the way, I appreciate you subscribing to what we do and the comments below. We gave away the Boys Are book last night to John. And John, we're going to find you today. Marcia and I will find you today. We will get you that book autographed and everything, Stars and Strife. And then pretty soon, we're going to get to 17,000 subscribers, at which time we will give you the Ezekiel Elliott bowling shoes, some subscriber. So tell your friends, tell Cowboys Nation, get in here. Let's subscribe and be a part of Fish Sports and the Clubhouse. The overwhelming favorite, number one, and there's not a close second, is George Edwards. He's the obvious front runner. He's already in the building, so he already works for the Joneses, and he already works with McCarthy, who brought him here. He's got some fancy schmancy title of assistant head coach or some darn thing. Nobody knows exactly what George Edwards does, again, because in a COVID time, we don't talk to George Edwards. But I know what he has done. I know what he built, helped Mike Zimmer build when they were in Minnesota together. So when the Joneses call Mike Zimmer and say, what do you think of George Edwards as the defensive coordinator, Zimmer will say yes. And that way, if it goes down the way I think it does, McCarthy will indeed have to dismiss Mike Nolan, but he won't have to upset the apple cart. He'll just move in another one of his guys, who after a year is also hopefully a Jones guy. And that's my pick. But you can't not interview other guys. Dallas made that mistake with McCarthy, which doesn't mean that he can't work out. Doesn't mean it won't work out. Yay, Mike McCarthy, win 5 Super Bowls. Or at least 2. But right now, the argument that it's working fine is preposterous. It's not working fine. And while the Joneses are not second-guessing themselves, they swear, I am second-guessing them by saying, maybe you should have interviewed more than 1.5 people. The Marvin Lewis interview, of course, being a courtesy interview. We will get to Marvin Lewis right now. That's my guy number 2. Now, I don't know if he's got a connection with McCarthy. And obviously, I've tried to do some research here to find out who does, because that increases the odds that McCarthy's got some relationship with the guy. And I don't know that. But I am old enough to remember when Marvin Lewis was the best defensive coordinator in football. He ran the Ravens defense, Super Bowl caliber team, late 90s, early 2000s. They won a Super Bowl. He goes to Cincinnati and puts together a very fine record, except when they got to the playoffs. Got 16 years there. Some people said he was the Jason Garrett of Cincinnati. But can Marvin Lewis be a defensive coordinator? Oh, yes, he can. And we know that he's already got a relationship with Joneses. That's my number 2 man. Number 3, Vic Fangio. He's the head coach in Denver. He would have to get dismissed first. I don't know if that's happening. But the reason I have him at number 3 is when he was interviewing for jobs in 2018, and I think maybe he had left the Bears, Mike McCarthy either interviewed him or wanted to interview him to be defensive coordinator in Green Bay. That's a good enough connection for me. Number 4, Matt Patricia. I haven't researched the connection yet. I don't know if one exists. Matt Patricia as a defensive coordinator was successful. Obviously, the Belichick tree is always interesting. It did not work in Detroit. Maybe he was overwhelmed or maybe he was under-talented. Matt Patricia is on my list. Dan Quinn is on my list at number 5. Again, almost the same thing, only with the Seattle coaching tree. Dan Quinn actually has had wildly successful teams in Atlanta. And then the roller coaster took him down, and he's now on the street and available. Number 6, old Uncle Wade Phillips. I've known Wade Phillips for a long time. He is a favorite son of Texas, and he's the son of Bum as well. Mr. Fix-It. And what he did with the Rams was outstanding, and then they said goodbye to him. He is a Jones family guy, having been the Dallas head coach, of course. He runs a 3-4, which for some reason Mike McCarthy is attracted to. If I was the Joneses, I'd say, Mike, why don't you let the defensive coordinator decide? And why don't you let all of us talk about how whatever system we play, it's got to match the players. You can't just say that, which is what they did last offseason. You have to do it, and they didn't do it. But 3-4 is the way Wade likes to roll. Now, you might say, well, this is a young man's game, Fish. And then you might say McCarthy's going to have some voice here. I don't know that Mike McCarthy has a relationship like that with Wade Phillips, but he's on my list. Seems like a long shot, but he's on my list. Number 7, Raheem Morris. Defensive coordinator, skins on the wall, takes over in Atlanta as the interim coach. Doing some things. Number 7, John Heacock. This is college. I'm not a college football guy. And so this is Lando that made sure, let's put him on the list. He is, at Iowa State, very inventive defensively. He is solving some of the spread concepts in the passing game at Iowa State. Put him on the list. Now we're getting to the bottom of the list. Chris Richard, who I had a conversation with not too long ago, kind of got screwed in Dallas. By the time they were done with the Jason Garrett era, somebody decided that it was some of his fault. And listen, he was the co-defensive coordinator along with Rod, so I guess. But there is nothing conceptually wrong with Chris Richard's style of defense, and there is everything right about Chris Richard's style as a man. Everything right. And I'll tell you this, and I just got done watching practice again. It's not as energetic as you might like it to be around here. And I think that's been the case all year. Now, maybe you could say, oh, it's businesslike. Okay, I guess. But Chris Richard brought energy every single day. His fingerprints were all over the Cowboys defense when it came to energy. I'm interested. I would interview Chris Richard. I'd interview him a lot of places. This year, he's kind of taken the year off. I think he got a bad rap. I think he deserves a second shot. Number 10 is Lovie Smith. That's a Texas ties guy. I think he's been kind of dabbling in college. But the Joneses do know him because, I think mostly because him and Rod Marinelli, I believe, were best friends. And here's my bonus guy, Sean Lee. Sean Lee is one of my favorite guys. He's probably one of your favorite guys too. I know that people get on him because he has had the injury issues. Not really his fault. It's not like he's fragile. He's a tough son of a bee. But it might be time. It might be time for him to say, you know what, I've been in pads enough. Now I want to be in control of something else. Here's my caution here. I think going from in pads to in charge is too much, too fast for almost any of them. I know remember people around here were talking about they should make Jason Garrett the head coach. Dude, the only thing he's ever coached is Little League Baseball. What are we talking about here? Hey, we should make him the offensive coordinator. No way. I think Jason Witten, one of the reasons he went to the Raiders was to basically kind of intern under John Gruden to learn another way. I think John Gruden's probably mentoring him to be the next coach of something somewhere. Head coach at Tennessee, again, college football is not my thing. Maybe someday, but if I was Jason Witten, I'd want to be a tight ends coach first for 2 years, then do well, then be an offensive coordinator for 2 years, and then do well, and then be a still young head coach for the first time. That ensures or comes closer to ensuring some level of success. I'm going to tell you an old Craig James story. Remember Craig James, the running back? And I know that Craig James has dabbled in kind of some controversial things, but he is a friend of mine. And one of the reasons he's a friend of mine, this is the former SMU and Patriots running back, of course, Pony Express. He retires from football with the Patriots. And he shows up at Valley Ranch one day. Obviously, he's a Texas guy. And he's walking around, and I didn't know him yet. He's walking around with a tape recorder and a notepad. I'm going, what's this NFL player doing around here with a tape recorder and a notepad? He had hired himself as an intern. He had talked to the Cowboys and said, could I get a credential to come inside Valley Ranch and learn how to be a media guy? Then he literally interned, I believe, at Fox 4. And then shortly after that, of course, he became a star on TV, Craig James, because he went about it meticulously and slowly. He didn't go to ESPN as soon as they asked him. He did an internship at Fox 4 in Dallas before he went to any network because he knew what he didn't know. And I believe that about Sean Lee. I think the best thing for Sean Lee would be, no, you don't get to be the defensive coordinator. You get to be the linebackers coach working under George Edwards, Marvin Lewis, Vic Fangio. And that could be a brighter future for Sean Lee to do it that way. So there's my top 10. Again, it's not the Cowboys list. That's Jeff Kavanaugh and Lando McCool and my list. 10 plus. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. And then, as you've noticed again, with all due respect to Mom's basement, because we used to have basements in Minnesota and Colorado. We're not in Mom's basement here. So thanks for joining along here, subscribing if you please, and telling your friends where you get the straight dope on the Cowboys Fish. Out.